Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Wednesday, May the 15th, and all I can say about today is, wow, what a crazy day. And the main thing I would like to say is that this is a great example of why we don't counter trend trade. Because if you tried to counter trend trade this right here, you got slaughtered. And if you tried to counter trend trade this coming back down, you got, guess what, slaughtered. Um, this is a great example of why, I'm always preaching, do not counter trend trade, stay with the trend. If you just bought this thing anywhere from prior to the open, it was up the whole way. We really, it looks like a trading range day, and you see I had that drawn off, but notice if you drew your trend line off those first two low swings, I mean, it was holding the whole way. And if you bought any of those pullbacks, you would have been in good shape. The most critical ones were, well, really this was the critical one because it was the only way to enter this until right here. And I had to go to the dentist today. I had to be there at 11 o'clock. And, of all the days to have to go to the dentist, um, this was the last trade I took coming up. I didn't get to take this one or this one, so I got back in time to take these last two trades, and I didn't take this one. I was done by then. I really had already hit my goal this morning, but you can't turn this trade down right here, and coming back down, um, I couldn't turn that one down either. It was just too good a setup. Um, I was looking for prices to come back to this trend line. Of course, it went much further than the trend line, and you can see, I mean, it continued to go down. And what we were doing is, notice how we broke above these highs here, and we never came back and tested that. That's what this move, once it tested it, look, it took off. Sorry, I had a little interruption. But notice if you draw this line right off that little double top right there that we broke above, that's what we came back and tested. You can see that was the previous double top from the overnight, and then we hit it again right here and broke above them. There was no retest until right here, and it was to the tick, and all the buying picked up again. And the only really the only way you can trade these kind of trends right here is to find the little channel or the trend line, and every pullback to it till you get a break. You got to buy, and it's obvious this was a trend line right here. Now where the trend channel line is, I'm only guessing that it's here. I mean, what I did, I started with it here, thought that was it, but notice how it just kept climbing. So then I thought, well, maybe it's right here, but it keeps on climbing. When I came back, the last place I had it before I left was there. And when I come back, we even went above that. So now I'm thinking it's there. And that kind of fits right there. You can see that. That was holding prices. We got above it a few times. Then it held again. So I'm thinking that's the channel. And so that's where prices were headed. Either way, it doesn't matter. You had this channel right here. And, it just doesn't pay really to sell this market lately. And it just keeps going higher and it keeps going higher. And at the same time, the bond market's, the bottom's falling out of the bond market. So I'm guessing, I'm only guessing here, but my guess is people are rolling out of the bubble bond market and they got nowhere else to go. So they're going to the stock market because look what it's doing. And I mean, heck, we're almost to 1700. We're making all-time new highs every day. So, people don't ignore that. At some point, it could, just like here, it can roll over and go the other way just as quick. But whichever way it's going, um, I mean, this is obviously overdone, but you don't know when it's going to stop. And there's, we got a couple of trend line breaks in there, I thought, but it just kept going higher. But evidently, it had a target it was looking for, and this was it. And it was hard to find. I'm glad I wasn't here struggling with it, to be honest with you. I hate I missed out on this move, and I'll explain that to you when I get there. I entered right here, and I had to be, at my appointment by 11 o'clock, but it's only like 5 or 10 minutes from here, so I didn't have to go far at all, but I didn't want to be late. And so I exited everything right here, and look what I missed out on. And I just, to this moment, it irks me, and that's why I think when I came back, even though I already met my target, that's why I had to take a couple more trades when I came back, because I felt like I missed out on something good, and then it was coming back. And so this is what once we got through this trend line that easily and moved on down, then I was looking for prices to come right here and test this, and that's exactly what happened. And I mean, so, once you've watched this stuff enough, you know what's going on. You have a good idea that that's what we're doing. We're taking this move back, and that's what happened. And, you know, it's anybody's guess as to why. You can go read the news, but doesn't mean that's why it did what it did. Anyway, they make the news up. That's one thing I learned a long time ago, is that reading the financial news at the end of the day is futile. It's a waste of time, because they make the news up to fit the price action. Um, I had to learn about price action and how a price chart works before I figured that out. But I'm convinced more than ever that these financial writers, they make the news, they write the news to fit whatever happened to the day. So. And they'll attribute it to all kind of crazy things, and probably nobody knows the real reason. But man, that was a beautiful thing. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up, get off my soapbox. Let's back out a little bit and talk about the trades. It was pretty obvious to see that this line was holding here. You should have had that line, and then it was pretty obvious to see that we had resistance across the top. And so really, I do not believe this was a um, well, you can't say it's not a trading range, because it is a trading range. And if you traded it as such, other than across the lows here, um, it would have worked. Even if you'd have taken this last trade, by this time, notice that all these highs in here are higher than the next high, and all the lows are higher than the next lows. I really thought we were going to break out here, and it came back again. And that's what they like to do. They like to play games with it, and I actually thought we might even break out here, but for certain when we bounced off that line with that bullish bar, I thought then, okay, this thing's going to break out and go higher, but it didn't, and it comes back yet again, and it gets a little below the actual line here. And that really, you can see how people got confused. Look at all that overlap. People were going short, people were going long. Everybody was confused, including me. But I know when you see something like this, that there's a good chance that means you're going to break out the top. You're at least coming back to test it. And so you got to get on with it. And thank goodness I did. And of course I exited here, but then I re-entered here. And of course I exited here and missed all that. But let's talk about each trade. You can see the matching highs. You can see we're making a little bit lower lows, but it's bouncing right in this area each time. You might have had this line. I think that probably looks a little better right there. This was the first trade I saw. I didn't really like getting short in here. It's too close to the lows, and you never know, you're probably going to bounce. But when it breaks lower and you get this reversal bar, that's a beautiful reversal bar right there. Um, Okay, sorry, I got interrupted there. Yeah, I've been out this some today, and everybody's looking for me now. I forgot where we were, but the fact that you're making higher highs here every time and higher lows. We didn't make a higher low here, but it's just another double bottom. It kind of looked like a little tighter range, and it looked like they were going to set it up, and then they broke it up. And once it broke above. All the people that have been getting short in here, it hit their stops, and then all the people that ran out of their longs got to come back in, and that's what caused this burst up through here. Why this thing continued to go on. It's just kind of a follow through from yesterday, really. You can see you can see yesterday's trend there, and it's just a follow through of that, more buying. And if we go back and look, it may be two equal legs. This leg doesn't look quite as big, but there was leg one, and actually if you get from the low to the, and then leg two, and we didn't quite get there. It ran out of steam, but that might have been what they were gunning for. So but yesterday, that reminds me, let me talk about that real quick before I go to the trades. Yesterday, somebody asked me about, how do you decide where you start measuring your legs and ending your measuring legs? Well, just like starting down here on this low, that's obvious. That's one move up or one leg. A leg is just basically a move. And so let's measure that leg. And then where do you start measuring the second leg? From the low of the move. And so there's the low of the pullback. So you measure the next leg. And so you're looking for a target up here, but we couldn't quite get there because of all the resistance here. But that's how you measure legs. The market moves in twos. And if you don't understand that, you need to. The market's always moving in twos. And generally, when you get one leg, you're going to get another one. And that's why when we're looking for reversals on pullbacks, like right here, it's hard to see, but there's one leg back, a pull back, and then a second leg down. So that's a two-legged move. And so what happens after the two legs? You look for the trend to go back again, so then we get on. And even right here, there's one little leg down, a pull back, and then another little leg down. It's on a much smaller level, but if you went to a smaller chart, you'd clearly see two legs there, and then it takes off again. And the market does that over and over and over. This right here is just two legs. One leg down, up, another leg down, a two-legged correction, then boom, right off the trend line, and off it goes again. And coming down, there were two legs right here. And sometimes, let me just show you that. There's one leg, then a little correction right there, and then another leg. And so you were looking for this leg to come down at least here. But what this two legs is one leg and a bigger move. So if you measure that leg right there, and then you got a correction right there. And so you were looking for this move, and look where you can see how people started buying right there. See that little green bar right there at the target? It went a little bit further and then it bounced. But the market was really weak now, and so that happens. And then we got another push down, and there's two legs here. One leg, two leg. This leg's not as long, but it found support. And then one leg, pull back, two legs, and then another little correction. And this is really probably one leg, and then pull back. And you can see two legs even here. Look, the move up, pull back, and a second leg, and then a correction. And you'll just see that over and over. Sometimes they're real clear and real easy to see, and other times they aren't. So, but for the person that asked me about two legs, you're constantly looking for the two moves and then a correction. And this right here is one leg, pull back, and then the second leg. There's lots of little legs in there, but this is a two-legged move right here. There, oops, wrong line, I'm sorry. First leg right there, and then your correction right here. And so we measure down. So we were looking for prices come here. Yeah, it went a little further. It's amazing though how many times there'll be perfect measured legs. And then again, you had two legs up. And so the market does that over and over. But let's talk about the trades. This first trade was a failed break lower, a nice reversal bar, easy chance to get long. And then look what happens. The only reason I like this trade right here, there's a lot of overlap here, but there's a lower high, and we're starting to work lower, and there's a failed second entry long. So that's a trap, and there's plenty of room to get out before you get back down here to the last lows, which were actually way down here at that point. So easy scalp. You didn't get anything more, and guess where it bounces? Right off that previous support line. And look at there, another reversal bar, just kind of like here. Notice prices were trading lower. There's a little, you may not can see it there, but notice that we went lower, went higher, and then went lower, and this bar ticks lower than that bar right there. So you got a little trap. Of course, my line just stays in the way there. Let me just move that. And you can see that there's a little double bottom with a one tick lower and then a reversal bar right off of the previous lows. So now you're expecting prices to come back up and test these previous highs, and guess where it goes? And there's another little, is there a trap right there? No, it never broke lower. That's why I didn't mark that one. It's really a second entry long there because it went higher and then pulls back and then breaks higher again. But it's not a great setup. It's more back in the middle, and we could have easily turned back down there after we got the scalp. So, but then you come back up here, and guess what? You get some resistance right here at the same closes from earlier today. You get that little bar. This one, at this point, this is looking a whole lot like a trading range day. You just now put this line in place off these two swings, so there's no confirmation of it. So it looks like a trading range day. So you take that short. But guess what? It comes back up again. But now you got a double top with a one tick trap, so you can take that short too. And both of these were easy scalps, but notice then you bounce again. And when this one bounced higher than this one, and it was right off of this line and right off of this possible trend line, then I'm thinking, yep, we're going to break out of here. So I really thought we were going to break out long here, but they made it a little higher. And that's the reason I didn't like coming short, because you're running out of room here. It did come right back through that line again, but that's how they fooled everybody. And notice people got confused here. You can see all that overlap. They got back below this trend line, and it had a little bit of trouble getting back above it again. But I was looking for a reason to get long, and let me show you this. You saw that bar first, and then you saw this big bullish bar. So what I did was wait on prices to one tick higher, and then I came back in here and dropped a limit order, a couple of ticks back in here, because this is a long way down here, and you don't want to you got to have room to get out before you get back up to this line. At this point, I would have had that line right there. So you need room to get out before you get there. So, and if you go long right here, you may not have that room. So, and because there's a little overlap, I'm thinking, hey, rather than use a stop here, I'm going to drop a limit order a couple of ticks back in here. And you can see you could have gotten filled maybe all the way back down to here. And then you get another little bullish bar. So if you weren't long already, you definitely could go long right there. Again, drop a limit order in here if you can. But I'm really thinking we're going to break out now. And then all of a sudden you got that bar. And so then I got a little nervous. I said, well, maybe we're still going to not break out of here. But I was out of my scalp by that time. But they're coming back but they could not come back and get the runners. So guess what? Your runners were safe here, and you could have ridden this all the way to the top. I exited my runners right here. That's just the way I like to trade. Once we went into that, I'd rather look for a new entry. Then we went higher. We pulled back. I drew a trend line off those lows right through there. You can see that. And we had that bounce right there. Nice bullish bar. It's really a little two-legged correction. Again, because there's some overlap, I like using the limit order here. This bar closed and opened right above, so if you didn't really have time to put a stop in there, you had to use a limit order. Of course, you could have dropped it right there where your stop would have been to make sure you got filled, but since there was some overlap, I dropped it back in here a tick or so. Pulls back, fills me, and then it goes higher. And again, any runners were safe depending on how you entered this one. If you entered on a stop, I'm not sure if they were safe or not. Yeah, even if you entered on a stop there, or you dropped your limit order where the stop would have been, you still survived, and your runners would have ridden this all the way up. And then unfortunately, this is where I had to leave, and I didn't want to leave a trade going with all my runners, so I exited everything when we went into this little stuff here, and I had to leave. I had to run out the door. So, when I come back, and see all of this, I'm really disappointed. And we'd really already started working down here, and I missed this trade and this trade, and even this trade. This is where I entered right here, and this is just a little breakout pullback. Let me show you. Well, let's go ahead and talk about these other trades first. This is just a two-legged pullback to the trend line, and I didn't know where this thing was going to end, but it looked like you might have had a break here, but I wasn't sure. It was kind of hard to tell. I may not have my lines drawn just right because I left them from where I had them when I left, and now I might have, now that I look at this, I might flatten this out to that right there and change this line. Let's just see if that changes the fit any at all, makes it look any better. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I think that's probably right. So I just needed to adjust my line a little bit. You drew it off those first couple of swings there. And of course, you didn't get a break till here, and then there's your only breakout pullback you got right there. So you don't really know. You got the only way you can go short here is if you get a confirmed trend line off the other side, and you see all those bars bouncing off up, and then you get another one here. And you may not have gone short below that. When it broke below that, you might have used a limit order, and if you did, you wouldn't have got filled. But it would have been okay probably to go short below that doji because you're figuring you're going to get another leg down, and we did before it bounced. And then, of course, guess what? Right there at the trend line again, another chance to go short. This one took a second to work on out. But this was a second entry short here, but it's a breakout pullback short. Again, it's right off that trend line. And I knew there was enough room. Look, it actually broke higher first and then went lower. So that's a trap. And, you know, there was what I did to make sure I had enough room to get out before hitting this line because I was afraid it might bounce off that line was I dropped the limit order and it pulled back and gave me a chance to get in, and then it went on lower. And, you know, I didn't think I was going to get any runners, but hey, your runners are all the way down here. And then it gives you another chance to enter here. There's been no break of this channel line, so I thought we'd probably get one right there, but we didn't really get one till right here. That's the first close outside that line. And guess what? And then you get this bearish bar right here. And, you know, again, it didn't close quite on its low. You might think about using a limit order, or you might just put your stop there. Either way, it didn't matter. But notice there was a trap here. You can't see it with my, it makes me mad when it does that. You can't see it with that in the way, but notice that we pulled back and then you got a failed second entry long, and look at that bearish reversal bar. They trapped everybody. So you could have gone long below this bar too because it went higher first. And I actually added on there and rode this down here. And when we went lower there and turned up, I exited. So that was a double load coming down there. So it was just a really good trading day, and I missed some of it. So I was shocked when I came back and saw everything that was going on. So, but been a good trading day, and there's one last long right here. Notice we got the break, and you know you're looking for prices to come back and test those last highs right there, which is that double top across there and then a double top right here, and look where it bounces to the tick on that. And you know, you could have gone long there. You would have had to ride some of this out. There's a failed second entry short right here, so you really could have gone long above that bar, but it's not a great setup, a lot of overlap. I would have waited for this one, and even then I would have used a limit order that would have easily worked all the way back into here. Easy move. Another long right here, right off the trend line. It's really getting late in the day here, but this still falls within the 2:30 cutoff time, so you could have taken it. I didn't take either one of those. This was my last trade. Here, when I added on the doubles, I went short. Again, I got these last two in here, and then I was done for the day. So, but that was it. I mean, there's, you know, you had plenty of chances to make a lot of money before the real move even happened. That's what's so great about it. But you had to see this line, or you had to find this low right across here. All it really did was the bigger range kind of got tighter is what it really looks like. But the key, again, make sure you notice that. That's about the only thing you can use that will let you know that prices may break out of a range, is that we're making higher highs all the way up, or higher lows all the way up, and higher highs all the way up. That means it's an uptrend. The buyers are in charge. Yeah, there's strong, really what it is, there's just strong resistance right here for whatever reason. And my guess is a lot of people saw this as a trading range, and they were trading it as such, and so it was it took a while to work through that trading range, but you can see what happened when it broke above it. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we'd have broke up here and turned straight down, because that's what usually happens. This is one of those rare times when you break out of a trading range and it never checks up. And so that's why people teach to trade that way. But 9 times out of 10, this will work. This will happen only often enough to keep you trying it. And the rest of the time you'll really go broke trying to trade trading ranges that way, especially in the ES. But you can see this is one of those days, but this is a great example too of why we don't counter trend trade, because if you tried to counter trend trade this, you were in trouble. There's just no other way to say it. I mean, who wants to ride? I mean, you can't ride out something like this because you don't know that it's going to come back like that. It did today, and if you rode it out, if you held on short out of any of this and it came back and you got out, consider yourself lucky, because it'll only do that enough to keep you trying to do that as well, and then next time it won't come back and it'll blow your whole account on one day. So be careful with that. But I think there was a channel here. Maybe there, I know there's definitely a trend line right there. We bounced off it too many times, but I think there's a channel here. It fits right here. You can see it was holding prices. It got above it, and then it was holding above it. So there's some kind of line there, and that's where we turned. It was hard to find, but that's why you stay with a short-term one until it's over. And you can see we did break it, and we did do a retest, but it was only a retest of the actual trend line. But that's not uncommon. A lot of times when you get what I call this, even though this is a big trend, this is a minor trend in the bigger picture, and sometimes that happens. And the market was just overdone, and once they decided to start exiting, and they were exiting, and we did get a break of this bigger channel, and looked like we tried to go do a retest, and we're still working on that. So, but I hope you had a good trading day. If you were confused, I understand why, but don't argue with the market. Don't, when you see a move like this, don't say it can't go any higher, because you see that it can go higher. And every time, coming up through here, every time I saw a red bar, I thought it was going to turn and come back and test this, but it just never did. And then, even when I was leaving, I thought it was going to turn down, and I come back, and, prices have gone all the way up here, and, now they've already moved all the way back down to here. So, not much else you can say about it. Just draw those trend lines and stay with them and follow the rules, and that's that. And you might could have got trapped here if you drew your line the way I did, because I would have thought that was going higher right there, but it didn't. But you have this trend line, so you got to, and when it bounced off of it there for sure, and turned back down, you should know that you got trap traders, and you want to take advantage of that. And then it's pretty obvious that trend line is valid, because that validates it. So if you didn't take that one, you definitely had to take these next couple. So but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. It's almost 30 minutes worth. We just really had a lot of movement lately, and it's odd when you get a move that strong, it suddenly turns and it's that strong on the way back down, unless it's news driven. So this is an unusual day, I will have to say. But just draw your lines and follow them, and follow the price action. And it's after the fact, it looks real simple now. But when this was going on today, it was hard for me to believe that prices were going to get back through that line. But sure enough, they did. And but as long as you stayed with the trend line, and I trusted it, and it worked, it turned out to be good for me. So just keep that in mind. Draw those lines, follow the price action. You can clearly see we're making lower highs and lower lows all the way down here, and till you get the break. And we overshot the trend channel. We overshot it a little here, but that's minor, and it might even actually be right there. And so then you don't get as big, and actually that looks really good. I think it probably is right there. and then this overshoot doesn't look so big right here now, and then we overshot it here, we overshot it back there. You got your break, you're moved to a new low, a reversal type pattern, and off you go the other way. So yeah, I think that's probably your trend channel right there. And just shows you don't always have to have it perfect, as long as you're close. Uh, but anyway, 30 minutes worth. I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.